Welcome to a self-published author's diary. I am Elodie Novodatsky. I write about first time, second chances, things that scare the crap out of me, and things that make me laugh out loud. I'll be speaking with you and sharing my adventures in self-publishing, the behind the scenes of writing, and the business side of it. And before we get started today, a small message from our sponsor, Anchor. Thanks for listening. Hello, how are you all doing? How was your Halloween? How are you all doing? I felt like Georgie Rani in Friends. Anyhow, how's your writing? What's the one thing you did or learned this week for your self-publishing? I've been toying with Facebook ads for Sweets for Love, and let me tell you, I'm happy with my current cost per click, but so far I have no actual sales from those clicks. I've decided to change it and I'm trying to advertise to other English-speaking countries. So not the US, but Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, India. So I'm trying different regions to see if maybe I will get more sales from those clicks. And as I'm currently wide, I added my books to read link as a call to action. And in the comments for the ad in India, I added the links to some of the stores that apparently do well in India at the bottom as a comment. I'll let you know if it works. I found success with my Kindle Avela Facebook ads in the US. And maybe I'll crack the code for the Sweets for Love series. Again, being wide means that for those readers who are on Kindle Unlimited in the US, I think I really need to I currently have 13 reviews. I thought maybe 13 reviews would be enough to have readers purchase my book, but I also totally understand that a reader who spends $9.99 a month to read as many books as they can, they are not going to add $4.99, especially for an author they may have not heard of before. So I'm trying to really reach out to those readers who are not on Kindle Unlimited and might be willing to take a chance on an author they did not yet hear about, especially because it's really getting a lot of wonderful, wonderful reviews, and I am really crossing my fingers that it does. Well, I'm not crossing my fingers. I am working so that the book finds its audience. And yeah, so I'll keep you updated. Today, I'm going to talk about what I did after my Kickstarter did not get fully funded. And since it was not funded, I did not receive any of the pledges. And I will also explain a little bit about my own experience with Kickstarter, because you may have heard about authors who are using Kickstarter to fund their projects, and as a lot of times you hear a lot about the ones that get funded, and it's wonderful for them, and I think they do a lot of work behind the scenes for that to happen, but you don't sometimes hear about what happens when it doesn't get funded and how you can maybe still use that to get funding for a project, probably not the entire funding you were hoping for, but still a little bit of something which helps you financially as you continue to work towards, or in your career, or towards your goals, or towards that book you want to publish, or to have an income on the side, whatever your goal is with self-publishing. So once upon a time, I decided to try Kickstarter to fund the audiobook version of my steamy rom-com, The Leftover Bride. So once upon a time was actually July 6, 2022. That's when I put out a call for people to become a patron of the arts and support my Kickstarter. As per Wikipedia, people who back Kickstarter projects are offered tangible rewards or experiences in exchange for their pledges. This model traces its roots to subscription model of arts patronage, where artists would go directly to their audiences to fund their work. So I did not decide to do that on July 6, 2022. I had thought about it, and I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before I took my summer break that I was thinking about it, but I did not mention I was going to do it because the actual time between I was thinking about maybe doing some research and trying to decide what the rewards would be. And then I just decided to do it because so in my case, I had already started the process of getting the audiobook done with Megan Carter, my wonderful narrator. So I was going to do it no matter what, but I was trying to have another outlet so I did not have to front the costs for the audiobook production. So why did I decide to do a Kickstarter for the audiobook? So there are many reasons. One of the main reasons was, of course, to help me fund the audiobook and to not have to front the cost of producing it, as I said. When you publish an audiobook without doing the so-called royalty share agreement, where you share some of your royalties with the audiobook narrator, you need to, of course, remunerate your audiobook narrator, who does so much work to be able to bring this format to the world. They're performers, artists, and producers. In addition to narrating, which I think is an art of its own, they also make sure the files are error-free. They take care of the little and mix and mic sounds you may hear otherwise. They master the file to the requirements of the distributor. So you pay a rate of per finished hour, but the per finished hour takes way longer than an actual hour of work. As per ACX, which is the platform for Audible, it generally takes a total of around 6.2 hours for a producer to complete 1 hour of an audiobook. How did they get to that number? Well, it takes about 2 hours to narrate what will become one finished hour. After the narration is recorded, it then takes an editor who might be the same person as the narrator about 3 hours to edit each finished hour of recording. At this point, it is strongly recommended that you run a quality control pass over the finished project. This means spending time re-listening and suggesting words, sentences, or sections to re-record. And that takes about 1.2 hours for every finished hour. So the price per finished hour must reflect all this work. Sometimes, as I said, you work as royalty share. You can even work as royalty share plus, which is something where you share the royalties with your narrator, but you also have a smaller per finished hour fee. So there are also risks involved, right? As the author, you may not recoup the money you invested if you do not sell enough audiobook. As the narrator, if you do royalty share and you agree to a smaller rate and they don't get as much in royalty share as what they thought when they embarked on the project. So this Kickstarter would have enabled me and Megan Carter, my wonderful narrator, to not take as many risks with the audiobook because it would have already been fully funded. And as an audiobook listener, I know that it reaches an even bigger market when it's available in that format. And I want to be able to reach that market. I want to be able to have those listeners. And I would have been able to even raise the agreed rate that we had agreed to with Megan, not because the agreed rate was low or anything, but because we had done royalty share projects in the past where I feel like Megan has not necessarily recouped her time investment. In addition, I wanted to not be exclusive to Audible. When you're exclusive to Audible, you get 40% of the royalties, which has different tiers depending on the way a listener listens to an audiobook. So it's not like you're getting 40% of the price of the book. When you're non-exclusive, you get 25%, but you do get additional royalties from other outlets like Google Play and Kobo Audiobooks and Storytel and Chirp and libraries and more. I wanted this book to be available to libraries and to all stores for people who speak English around the world to enjoy it. And yes, I did think I was going to be successful with this Kickstarter project. No, I did not think I was going to be the next Brandon Sanderson, whose Kickstarter project for his 4 secret novels blew past $41 million from more than 185,000 backers. He had set a goal of $1 million, and I didn't think I was going to be the next Brandon Sanderson because Brandon was already very well known before the Kickstarter and he had already ran, from what I've read, successful Kickstarters before. Kickstarter has an article on their website entitled How Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter Project Broke the Bookish Internet, written by Marco Adwell. And in the article, it's mentioned that Margot predicted it would hit $10 million. And then here I quote, "So even I was a little surprised at exactly how big this got," end quote. Because for me, again, this isn't a case here for Brendan about someone who overnight got successful, what you sometimes hear. They did a lot of work beforehand, and the article goes into some of that work. If you're interested, I'm linking it to this episode's description. And for my goal, which was not $1 million, I thought I had done the legwork. And so, yes, there are things for the Kickstarter that I would do differently, because even though I had, prepared an entire project management document and I had done what I thought was necessary for the project to be successful, I think I should have done a few things, as I said, differently. Like, talk about it on this podcast beforehand. Like, I had mentioned it, but I didn't say, oh, it's launching next week, because I was on hiatus. But I could have still done like even just a bonus episode where I said like, hey, if you're listening to this podcast and, you've enjoyed it, you're enjoying it, here's something you can do to help. Someone very wise mentioned that to me, that I asking if I had mentioned it on my podcast. And yes, Leslie, that was you. And if you're listening, but no, I had not. Like, I had not done even a special episode about the fact that I was launching the Kickstarter. So if you look on the Kickstarter websites, they have stats on the projects that are fully funded or that are not successfully funded. And if you look at the category publishing, you can see that 21,485 projects were fully funded and 37,620 were not. So about 36% of the publishing projects on Kickstarter are funded, at least as of November 6th, I think. I had seen some offers being successful, mostly with paperbacks, but I had calculated that based on the rewards I was offering, which started at $1, my readership, and the fact that both Megan and I were going to share about the Kickstarter, the project would be successfully funded. There's a very interesting episode on Kickstarter for authors with Monica Leonele on the Creative Pen podcast. I'm linking to it too in this episode's description, where Monica gives tips and common mistakes about Kickstarter. She mentions that audiobooks do not necessarily do as well there, but then I also saw an article on Findaway Voices from someone who did fund their audiobook production via Kickstarter. So those two statements are of course not mutually exclusive, because I don't have the data for how many audiobooks actually get funded. In publishing, it has a lot of difference. It's hardcover, it's audiobook, it's projects related to publishing. So it can encapsulate a lot more than just, one part of publishing. So as I mentioned, and as you know, because the title of this podcast, and I've said it several times already, my project was not funded. I sent many emails to my mailing list. I did a YouTube video. I posted on my blog. I posted on my social media. I even did a what if TikTok was a fairy video, hoping people would back the project with at least the $1 tier. I was hoping to be featured into the Projects We Love of Kickstarter at the beginning of the campaign, but it did not happen. Again, because I think I didn't have enough backers at the beginning. And here I could say I could have been clearer also in some of my messages, and I could have done different outreach campaigns. I even had I've been told my Kickstarter was never going to get funded story, which is a true story. Somebody did tell me that. Hi, somebody. To engage people into looking at my page, but it didn't work. I had $1,345 pledge out of 2,800. So 2,800 was my goal. And if you go onto my Kickstarter page, which I was also linked there, it will show you what I had counted in that particular goal. So the Kickstarter was funded at 48% and it had 23 amazing backers. And since it was not funded, I did not receive any of the pledges, right? Because when your project doesn't get funded on Kickstarter, you do not receive any of the pledges. Here are a few things I would do differently. I would have a longer legwork, so more info prior to create a buzz. I think I'll maybe do a Kickstarter team with a few people to help me spread the word, and some who would already pledge to fund the project with $1 as soon as the project is live. I would probably do a book and not an audiobook, but I would put the audiobook as a stretch goal. The reason being would be that I could put a goal in terms of what I'm trying to get funded. So instead of 2,800, I would try something like 500, which is also something that is mentioned in the Creative Pen podcast and might help me get even more. And why would that, that 500 goal might get me even more funding is because it would appear that backers keep on funding a project, even if it's already successful, because the project is already completely funded, so they know they're going to get the rewards. So there are some, I think, who see that the project is being funded. They, there is this thing where it's popular, and so like it's going to, all the rewards are going to be materializing, and they are more inclined to back the project. And yes, even though there are a lot of authors out there who fulfill their Kickstarter even with their first books, I'd wait to have more fans about a certain series or book before trying it out again. For that buzz, like that buzz I'm keeping on that I keep on talking about. Like I would want people to really be very excited about the project, but more than a few people, I would like to have dozens of people who are already very excited about the project. Maybe I'd even do a nonfiction about self-publishing, about the behind the scenes of my self-publishing career, kind of like what I'm doing on this podcast. And I narrate the audiobook. So this is a project I have, but I don't have the time right now, as my fiction is starting to really take off with the Kindle Vella bonuses. And the reviews of Sweets for Love have been raving. And I've been trying to make sure this book finds its audience. And I've also been trying to make sure that the Leftover Bride audiobook, which has been produced, also finds its audience. So something I did do after the Kickstarter, which has helped and which gathered $225, which I used towards the production of the audiobook. So towards some of the cost. Of course, the audiobook did not cost only $225, but towards the production of the audiobook was I have sent a message to my backers, including a video, to express my gratitude and to talk about next steps for the audiobook. I wrote the message on my blog and I shared it on my social media and my newsletter. And one of the most important things I've done, and it was not funded, but that's what helped me gather a little bit of funds for the project, was to update my online store to offer some of the rewards. So the ones which were the least time intensive for me. For example, readers and audiobooks listeners could pre-order the Leftover Bride audiobook directly from my store, helping me increase the royalties and get their names in the credits. So they could also name a character in Sweets for Love, or they could chat self-publishing with me if they wished. Several backers from the Kickstarter project decided to get those rewards directly from me. And that's how I was able to get $225, which helped offset some of the cost. Again, the project was $2,800 on Kickstarter. It cost me less to do it without Kickstarter because I didn't have the Kickstarter fees and everything that was included again, and some of the shipping, because when you're doing your Kickstarter project, you have to make sure you account for every part of what it's going to cost you, right? To have the Kickstarter project, to make sure that you have the actual amount that you need for your project. So if you're shipping books, if you're printing books, if you are shipping books internationally, some of the time that you're going to take also, like if you have rewards that are time intensive, like whenever I'm producing something that is time intensive, it's taking away from things that are actually lucrative for me, like right now my Kindle Vella stories and some other things. So you have to consider all of that too when you do your Kickstarter project. So for me right now, the actual audiobook production, we went back to the agreed rate with Megan that we had agreed to prior, and which again is a fair rate, but we also do royalty share. And so with the royalty share, she still does take a little bit of a risk. Like she offers me a rate that is slightly less than what she does for non-royalty share projects. And even though the risk is less than when we did royalty share plus on Audible only, her rate was much lower. But so to recap, here are 3 things I would do differently. In addition to maybe changing the format of what I'm trying to get funded, I would make sure I engage possible backers from my mailing list and readers groups earlier to create that famous buzz and to make sure I have more people who are on board and excited about the project from the get-go. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I had participated in Kickstarter campaigns before, but not with my author email. And so I'd also make sure to have a few back projects on my profile before starting. I would study some of the most recent similar funded projects more closely to see what their rewards were and would also Google them to see what their strategy was. And again, here's the main thing I did when my Kickstarter campaign was not successful. I made sure my store was updated with the items I could deliver without a lot of extra work on my side so that backers could still back the project if they wanted. And as I've mentioned, the audiobook production of The Leftover Bride did happen. But of course, if you would like to support me, this podcast, the audiobook production, a wonderful audiobook production by Megan Carter, you can borrow The Leftover Bride audiobook from your library. You can purchase it or use a credit on Audible. It's also available on Google Play, on Scribd, on Chirp, on Kobo, on Apple. It's basically available everywhere you can get an audiobook. And here's the trailer for the audiobook. And you'll hear. It's really, really amazing. And I will talk to you right after the trailer.
Are you ready to fall in love with Hallmark Movies' steamier cousin? If your heart flutters for grumpy but sweet and sexy book boyfriends and second chance holiday rom-coms, this audiobook is for you. Dear Diary, hi, it's me. Hashtag the leftover bride. That hashtag sucks. Can we agree 'tis the season for a do-over? All I want for Christmas is for my life to turn into a Hallmark movie, but sexier and steamier. Last year, my fiancé, aka hashtag the runaway groom, sprinted past me at the altar, breaking my heart, destroying my booming wedding dress designer career, and bringing my family's bakery close to bankruptcy. This year, I have a plan. A list of things to tick off before the 31st of December, including going on a blind date for the first time. Not on this list, getting back into the spotlight. Also not on the list, falling in lust or in love yet again with my high school sweetheart, Ryan Sawyer. No way. Not happening. Even if he is back in town with those broad shoulders and that Ryan grin that make me want oh so much more. Even when I blurt out on national TV that he's helping me with my to-do list. Even if being around him feels so right. He didn't stay after high school. He's not staying now. Get a grip, Circa, and stop believing in happily ever after. Unless, could the third time truly be the charm? Be part of the creative process and back this project today by pre-ordering a copy now. If you're in the mood for a fun story with lots of chemistry and a bit of angst set during the holidays, this is the perfect audiobook for you. The Leftover Bride is a second-chance romance set during the holiday season in a small town on Maryland's eastern shore, full of laughter and heartwarming moments and some sexy moments, checklists, family dynamics, a stubborn cat, and a rescue dog.
Thank you so much for listening. Did I not tell you that this trailer and this audiobook, it sounds amazing. So if you like steamy rom-coms, holiday rom-coms, we're coming, it's November. Everybody's already talking about the holidays. So if you are in a holiday mood, or if you just would like to listen to a rom-com narrated by the wonderfully talented Megan Carter, then I will add also the links to the audiobook onto this episode's description. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions that I have not answered about Kickstarter, I can try to answer them. You can leave me a voicemail if you are thinking about doing a Kickstarter, or if you have something that has worked for you and you'd like to share, don't also leave a voicemail, and that would be wonderful. And you can become a monthly supporter of this podcast if you're so inclined. And what else? Oh yes, of course. Don't hesitate to leave a review. Thank you again so much for listening. To all writers out there, happy writing, and to everyone, happy reading.